Hi, I just wanted to make this video to sort of go over After Effects a little bit more in detail as I kind of breezed over it due to all the technical issues that I was having. I'm going to mainly go over the UI so you guys can get a little bit more familiar with things and the process of adding keyframes and how they work, just a little bit more in detail so that you guys have a resource to look back on. Let's just switch over to this. So in here, I have After Effects open up. I have the assignment slightly modified, but it's the same file. I'm going to start with the central box, which is your composition window. The composition works the same as an artboard in Illustrator or just the standard file type in Photoshop. It is where all of your content will be and what will be displayed when rendered. So two things that are important of this window are at the bottom left. You have your percentage of zoom and the ability to fit to the screen. It will fit to the available space that you have for the window. Next over to it is the quality of your viewport. This will sort of make things look fuzzy, but it will improve performance if you have a lot of things going on on your screen. It will not render at this quality. It will always render at full quality. So it's more of a working aid than anything else. The rest you can sort of ignore. We can go over those later if they come up or needed. To the left of this screen is your project panel. This is where all of your content will be for within After Effects. If you bring in a photo, if you bring in a video, or even another Adobe program file like Photoshop or Illustrator, they will all live in this panel. That being said, how you create things are mainly these two buttons at the bottom. The folder will create a new folder. You can give it a name, and then you can click and drag things into it, and then it will sort of hide into there. You undo that, delete it. The next one over is how you create compositions. It's this funky little 3-colored icon. We don't have to get into it right now. We can do that when it's needed, or I can go over it in class. To the top of your screen is your toolbar. It runs the full width from left to right. Start on the left side, you have your selection tool. This is your default tool. It allows you to click and move things around on your screen without any issues. The next one is your hand or your pan tool, which allows you to move the actual composition. The alternative of using this tool is you click down the scroll wheel of your keyboard or of your mouse, and it allows you to do the same thing. It will also, much like other programs like Illustrator or Photoshop, it will override whatever tool you're using as long as you're using the middle scroll wheel click. The next is your zoom. Zooming is much like in Photoshop and Illustrator, where it does a scrubby zoom. You can also scroll freely and it will zoom in and out. So the tool isn't used that much for me. The next 3 icons are grayed out. You don't have to worry about those right now. We'll cover them in a couple of weeks. The next icon is the rotation tool. Rotation tool allows you to click and rotate your object in your viewport. The hotkey for this tool is W. So the key hotkeys so far are V for your selection tool and W for rotation. The next tool is the pan behind tool, which is how you move the anchor point and what we covered in this sort of block here. If you jump back to the assignment, you use this tool to move the little crosshair wherever you need it on your object. A handy trick to get it back to center or to one of the corners or edges is if you hold down Control or Command, you can snap it to one of the corners. and it will snap to one of these little dots along the ways or to the edge. You can also bring it close to the center and it will snap to the center of your object. This is a good way to get back to the center of your object without trying to guess the size of objects. The next tool over is your rectangle tool. It is how you draw shapes or masks. Inside of this tool, you also have a couple of other objects as well. The hotkey for this is Q, and the amount of times you hit Q, it will cycle between all of the different shapes. Beside that, much like Illustrator, is your pen tool. This allows you to draw lines in your composition. Inside of it, you have your add vertex, your vertex control, much like you have in Illustrator, and the hotkey for that is displayed as G. Beside that is your text tool, self-explanatory, how you add text to your scene. You can also do vertical type within this as well. So that's the two tools that are nested in there. All of these other tools you can kind of forget, or not forget, but you don't have to worry about, as we won't be using them in this semester, as far as I know. Moving all the way to the right side of your screen, you have your workspaces. So I am in this standard workspace. If you do not see this, you can click these two little arrows and you can then see all of the different screens. Mine is a bit cut off just due to the recording, but they are there. If you ever lose a panel, one of these windows, or want to get back to default, you can click the little free hamburger icon, 3 lines, and you can do reset to saved layout. This will reset it to whatever is the default layout that has been saved to that profile. So moving down, you will get to the properties panel. This is rather new for After Effects. It is right above me. This will, much like in Illustrator, display all of the editable properties of the selected layer. So for instance, I have the AC icon selected. So it is displaying the anchor point, the position, the scale, the rotation, and the opacity. You can move the position and it will move the object. It is a handy little thing to keep up, as you can quickly kind of get into some of the details of whatever is selected. And finally, we get to the timeline, the main section that you will be focusing on. Just make this bigger, and I'll just move myself up a little bit. So from left to right, you have your, or from top to bottom, I should say, you have your different compositions that you have open, and you can know that which one you are selected by the white line that sort of appears underneath it. From going on here, this is your time code. If you scrub this, you will see that the playhead moves with it. So from the time you move down to your layers, and from left to right, you have your eyeball, which is your visibility of that layer. You have your sound. If the layer has sound, you can mute or turn off the sound in that column. Then you have your soloing for the layers. If I make a new layer, and we have now 2 here, and I want to solo one of them, it will hide the other layers without affecting the actual visibility of them. It is a good way to hone in on a certain object when you're animating, or if you're trying to figure out if it looks good or not. You can hide everything else very quickly and then click the button to bring everything back to visibility. To delete that layer. Next is the lock. The lock, it works the same as other programs, where it stops you from being able to select your object. Moving on from there, you have the modes, and the modes work the same as Photoshop. Your multiplies, your adds, your lightens, your soft light, everything is in there, much like within Photoshop. And then you can sort of ignore the next handful of buttons that you see on your timeline. and these over here, we can get into those in later weeks. Then you get into the actual timeline itself. You have a large bar that runs across your screen. This is the length of the visibility of your layer. You can grab and move the visibility of this. That's something that I did not show in class. And it is not as important right now. Everything should just run the full length regardless. Then above that, you have this blue little down arrow connected to a blue line running vertical. This is your playhead. This is how you scrub between the different times and different keyframes that you have set in your program. And that's about the UI. That's the basics of it. There are more complicated things. We'll get into those in the weeks to come. Now I'm going to move on to animating and keyframes. So my goal is to move this square from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and have it animate. So in order to do that, we want to select the layer that we have. You want to hit the keyboard shortcut E to bring up the position property. Beside the position property, you have the stopwatch. That is how you start recording a keyframe. If you click that, it will record the current position of the object, and it will place a keyframe on the timeline at the point of the playhead. Okay. Now, to record another keyframe, you want to move your playhead to a different point in time, and then you, for instance, for position, you want to then move the object there. You will know that you've successfully added a second keyframe by the visual cue of this line that gets created in your composition when you have the object selected. You can then also double check that there are now 2 keyframes on this timeline. Keyframes work by recording the point in time that you want the object to be doing something. It could be rotation, it could be the opacity, it could be the scale. It is telling the program at this point, I want it to be on the right side of the screen or corresponding to whatever value it is. And the other one is telling the program at this point, it should be here, be this size, be this opacity. So if you scrub between the 2 of these, you will notice now that everything moves smoothly. And that is essentially it. It works the same for opacity. It works the same for scale. So for instance, if I want to bring up the scale, I would hit S with the layer selected. We can hit the stopwatch to start a keyframe, places a keyframe here. I'm going to scrub over to about here, and I'm going to make it bigger. And by changing this value, we have now added a second keyframe. Now it will scale and move at the same time. You may have noticed something. We no longer have the position up. By opening the scale, we have sort of taken over where the position value was. In this instance, if you want to open up multiple attributes at the same time, you can hold the Shift key and hit the corresponding keyboard shortcut. So for position, it is P. For rotation, it would be R. For opacity, it is T. These will open up, and by holding Shift, it will display all of them instead of just the one that you've selected. On that, you can then add more keyframes. You can hit the stopwatch for both rotation and opacity. You can change the position, and you can then change the value, and it will automatically start to add these keyframes. And I can make it disappear. And you'll notice that some of these keyframes aren't fully aligned. You can always click the keyframe and move it over to align it to the different sides. So we now have a rotating, scaling, and disappearing icon. Now, the space between these two keyframes is how long it will go from point A to point B. So if I want it to be shorter, I can drag and select all of these keyframes and move them closer. It means that it will take less time for the animation to happen. Pretty self-explanatory. For putting them together makes it faster, pulling it apart makes it slower. It takes more time to go from point A to point B. Another thing is you don't need all of the keyframes to be aligned. If I want it to move slower, I want the opacity to be quicker, and then the rotation and scale to be halfway, say. Now we have sort of a staggered effect going on, where things are starting and stopping depending on where their keyframes are positioned. I hope this helps, and I hope you start to understand After Effects a little bit better. It does get easier with time, much like anything that you work on. The more you do it, the more you interact with it, the easier and more intuitive it becomes. That's it for me. I'll see you guys next week.